Hi everyone. Since this is the MS and MTech admission season, I've been receiving a lot of messages on LinkedIn and everywhere asking for what should I choose. So I thought I've already made videos and I thought I'll just give a quick overview as to which is a better option for you guys, and you can take a call based on that. And again, remember, this is based on my experiences and it may not apply to everyone. Okay, that's the disclaimer. So before we start the discussion, I'll just give you guys two very important points to keep in mind. I'm talking about MS versus MTech in India. Okay, when India we don't have MS, what we call as MS is actually MS by research. So an MS by research program is almost like a PhD. So this here is MS by research is almost like a PhD, and the intention is that usually when you are doing MS by research, and if you do very high quality research, the professors would ask you, will you be interested in converting it into a PhD? So MS can be treated like a mini PhD. So two things to keep in mind. If I want to compare in one line MTech versus MS, I'm giving a very generic comparison. MTech, the entry into MTech is purely based on your GATE scores. You have high GATE scores, you are very low GATE ranks, very good GATE ranks, you get into an MTech program. And within 2 years, whatever be your performance, you just perform, do your coursework, get some grades, and do some okayish project work, and you're out of the college. So it's harder to get into because you have to score a good rank, but much easier to get out. At the end of 2 years, you will be pushed out of the institute. MS by research, on the other hand, the score cutoffs are relatively easier for MS by research program. So it's easier to get into, but much harder to get out. Okay, so there, when in an MS by research program, coursework is just a very minor detail. Okay, you just have to finish your coursework. It's just a very minor detail. It's just a formality that you have to do. Most of your time should be spent in validating an idea, building a chip, writing a journal paper, and then measuring and taping out the chip. All that takes a majority of your time. Okay, so but that's why it's much harder to get out, especially if you're coming straight out of undergraduate degree. It's going to be a tough task. Now, who should choose MS and MTech? So since I said I'll give a very brief idea, we are not going much deeper into it. Very briefly, this is how you can think of it. MTech, harder to get into because you need a good GATE score, but much easier to get out. Okay, you just finish your coursework you don't have to be exceptional to finish the degree. But when it comes to MS by research, you have to produce high quality research. Okay, that's a mandatory, at least if you look at the top IITs, and especially some good professors would definitely expect very high quality research outcomes, which is why it takes much longer to finish. A lot of times students usually take at least 3.5 years to finish an MS by research degree. Usually it goes till, sometimes a moderate student would take around 4 years. 3.5, good students can finish, very rare cases they finish it in 3 years, but 3.5 is very nominal. Okay, 3.5 to 4 years is something that happens for most MS by research students, which is why usually what happens is at the end of your 3.5 to 4 years, your professor would make a suggestion. Okay, you've already spent 3.5 to 4 years, work for 1 more year, do some more research, maybe publish a paper or do a tape out, and you get a PhD. So that's how the whole idea was initially. But I think most of the students that I have seen who enter as MS students, most of them finish out by 3.5 years and leave the campus. But it's incredibly harder to get out. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind to make a call. So don't think because it's relatively easier to get into, I should choose for an MS by research. You can very easily finish an MTech degree even if you have a poor GATE score. It's hard to get into an MTech program, but if you get into an MTech program, it's much easier to finish it. But an MS by research program, it's very difficult to complete it. A lot of students drop out. Okay, because they're not able to. They usually, undergraduates don't have the research aptitude. So sometimes they don't completely are able to handle the stress of the the requirements of an MS by research degree, so they drop out. And this is not something unique. I mean, this is something that happens in PhD degrees, especially even if you look at America. A lot of students sometimes they can't handle the stress of a PhD life, so they move to industry. Happens everywhere. But I'm just letting you know, don't think that, okay, it's easier to get into an MS by research, so let me apply for an MS by research because I can't get a good MTech. So don't make that mistake. You can of course choose MS by research, provided keep this in mind. It's harder to get out of an MS degree, and I'll give you guys who should choose an MS by research program and who should choose an MTech program. Now first, I'll tell who should choose MS by research program. I've already laid the basics that MS by research takes much longer to pass out. Okay, so who should choose MS by research? You are a very good problem solver and you plan on doing PhD in the future. So sometimes by the time you're in your third year, fourth year, you really like a subject. For example, let's say you're working on analog, you really loved analog electronics. You did a project in your undergrad and you felt, okay, this is the field for me. Okay, by the end of fourth year, if you are able to come to that conclusion in your undergraduate degree, you are in a very good position. Now you think that, okay, I'm meant for research. I'm naturally a problem solver. I enjoy building things. Okay, and maybe sometimes some of you might want to do a PhD. If you want to plan on doing PhD somewhere in the future, MS by research is a very good option because it will tell you how a PhD life is going to look like. Okay, PhD life can be lonely. You have to be alone working on your problem, especially if you're working on one idea and validating it, especially in IITs mostly. There are some very rare teams where research happens collaboratively between 4 to 5 PhD students, but in most of the IITs usually there is one PhD student who works with a prof. Okay, so it's a very lonely journey, and you will get an understanding of how PhD is going to be through an MS research program. So next, you are naturally inclined towards research and you are naturally a very good problem solver. So don't confuse GATE preparation with problem solving. GATE preparation is mostly just application of knowledge. It's just doing like your little bit glorified, it's like your glorified exams, right? What you take in your college, it's little bit more difficult than that. So don't confuse that as a problem solve. If you're able to solve problems for GATE, that's not the thing. What I'm talking about problem solving is here as an engineer. When you're working on a problem, you let's say you're building a circuit and it may not work. So you have to sit and debug why is it not working. So that's the skill I'm talking about. And usually if you're a student who built very good projects in your undergraduate degree, that is a skill that you will cultivate. Okay, that is a skill that you will naturally develop. And of course, if you have to fine tune that skill doing PhD, then you'll go on to become good PhD student. So you're naturally a research oriented and problem solving guy, and you're not much into coursework. You really don't care much about, you don't enjoy doing courses much. You don't really care about all this grading and CGPA, but you're naturally a builder. You want to build things, make things work. See, I have seen examples during my master's research. There are some guys who would be terrible at academics. They haven't understood how to crack exams. They may not be able to do very well in entrance exams too. But some of them have gone on to do phenomenal work in their MS by research. They have published very good papers, come up with very good ideas. Then of course they have gone on to become great engineers as well. Okay, so you're not much into coursework. You're naturally a research and oriented guy. You're a problem solver. Then MS by research is best for you. The other thing to keep in mind is you shouldn't have any big financial constraints. So keep in mind, depends on your luck. You might end up spending 4 years on an MS by research degree. An MTech degree, you will just graduate within 2 years. There is no big constraint there. Okay, but here you are going to spend 4 years. Keep this in mind. So unless you are really, really interested and passionate about research, you shouldn't really enter into MS by research. So one thing to keep in mind is that you don't have any major financial problems, no major health issues. Keep these two things in mind, because to be a good researcher, you need to be in good health. So it's often not much spoken about, but it's something very important. Okay, you need to be in good mental, physical health to be a good researcher. Okay, because research is going to be a very lonely journey. So you have to have that passion. You need to be very passionate because sometimes you may be working on an idea and you may not be able to crack it within a week or a month. It might take you a few months to crack a problem. Okay, so that is why you should not have any major financial problems. If you have big financial problems and you end up taking 4 years, then it may not be really good. So ensure that you don't have any big financial constraints. If you have any big financial problems, then I would recommend not to opt for an MS by research program. Okay, especially in the top schools in the country. Okay, because they would expect, the expectations would be much higher, and for you to meet those expectations, you have to spend that time. You may have to end up spending 3.5 years to 4 years. So you should not have any major financial constraints, major health issues. Okay, so if you don't have any of that, then you can go for MS by research. And if you have any of these conditions, you have a problem with finances, then I wouldn't recommend an MS by research. Okay, so this is something to keep in mind. Don't just blindly enter into an MS by research program. It's much harder to get out. So next is for MTech. Who should opt for MTech? So in our batch, sometimes I saw, this was actually 15 years ago, a lot of guys, I mean, see, for example, I scored, I think I wrote my gate in third year. I mean, back in the day, I was an E&I instrumentation student, and but even though I was an E&I student, I didn't study communication systems, random processes, and all that in college. I read those things out of my own interest. So I gave my gate exam in my third year, where only I studied only 50% of the subjects. Okay, but my rank was, I think it's 162. I don't remember exactly. This is like more than 15-16 years ago. I think it's 162, and it's not a big deal. I mean, gate is not that tough an exam. Zero preparation. We just me and 4 of our friends from BITS, we all went and wrote the exam and came back. We had almost zero preparation. Whatever we studied for coursework, that's it. And in fact, I hadn't even prepared for 50% of the syllabus, and I gave it in ECE. I used to read up about electromagnetics and communication systems on my own, because those were my favorite subjects, and I used to ignore instrumentation subjects. Therefore, I made very poor grades. My CG is not as high compared to my very close friends. So yeah, that's something I want to let you guys know. I had a decent gate rank, but I was not even thinking of applying for a MTech program. But it turned out, when I was working in a job, I really felt maybe I'm more cut out for research. So, and then I opted for MS research for that reason. Okay, so I had a good gate rank. Maybe I could have gotten some, it was 162, maybe some IIT, either microelectronics or, a communication systems program. But I ended up choosing MS by research because I felt I was more cut out for that. Okay, so that's why I'm talking about MTech, because back in our time, I have seen other candidates as well who had pretty good MTech score or gate scores, but they ended up taking up MS by research program. Okay, now I hear that if you have a top gate score, you naturally prefer getting into a good MTech program. Okay, so who should prefer MTech programs? Let's say you get a good gate rank. Now, should you prefer should you prefer an MTech program or still an MS program? Now keep in mind, you should choose MTech if your immediate goal is to get into a job as early as possible. So you felt your undergraduate education is not good enough, and so you need to quickly upskill yourself and be job ready within 2 years. And the shortest path for that is an MTech. You want to get into a job as quickly as possible because you felt as an undergraduate you're not job ready yet. Then MTech is the best option for you. You have financial problems and you want to quickly enter the job market, start working, then yes, MTech is the best option for you. And third, you're not really research oriented. You may be an intelligent guy, okay? But if you're not research oriented, you're not obsessed with a problem, you're not a very deep problem solver, or you're not very, very much interested in solving very complex theoretical problems, then choose MTech. Okay, MS by research is not for you. So you're not much R&D focused, but you are somebody who enjoys building stuff, taking things quickly into production. You want to get into this, job market. You enjoy being this, guy who ships products. You like the business end of it. Then of course you should choose MTech, finish the degree as early as possible, then enter the job market. Okay, so that's who MTech degrees are for. Third thing, in an MTech degree, you get to do a wide variety of courses. Okay, you get the freedom of choosing a wide variety of courses. And let's say after your undergraduate degree, after your BTech, you're not sure. Let's say you're not sure what field you want to get into. You're not sure whether you want to go into, say, analog, or you're not sure you want to go into digital, or say RF and microwave. When I say analog, I'm talking about analog and mixed signal. Okay, analog and mixed signal, digital, or RF and microwave. You're not sure which subject you want to get into. So for first 1 year, you can end up taking courses. You get to take just courses for first 1 year, right? You just want to finish off all your credits. So first 1 year, 2 semesters, you can take up all the courses. Then at that end of first year, you will get a freedom. Okay, you will decide which field you have an inclination towards. Then and the second year onwards, you can take electives in that subject. Let's say you end up liking, you thought you liked analog in your undergraduate, but you entered the program and you ended up liking digital more. Then you can take more electives in digital, and then in the final semester you can do a project in digital, and then yes, of course, you will be industry ready after that. So you get the breadth of, you can have a more wider options to choose from an MTech program. In an MS program, your coursework is generally decided between you and your guide. Your guide and you decide your coursework. It's very narrow, and you don't get to explore much after that. Because your guide would expect you to start working on the problem, on the research problem, right after your first semester. Right, in fact, your first summer itself, the professor would expect you to start working on your research. Okay, so that you will on an MTech, there is no such constraint for you. So if you want to explore different things, you're not sure after your undergraduate degree what you want to enter into, and you want to explore a wide array of fields. You want to see, are you good at analog, or are you good at digital, or you want to explore RF and microwave, MTech will be a good option for you guys. Okay, you can take electives, and then maybe if you like an elective and you feel okay, you have an inclination towards some field, then you can pick that project in your final semester, get some work done, join an industry. Okay, so that's it. I just wanted to very briefly talk about it, because I'm very sorry I couldn't reply to a lot of you on LinkedIn and other social media platforms. So I just wanted to talk about all these things. MTech versus MS. Keep this point in mind always. Okay, this is something students don't know before they get into the degree. MTech is harder to get into, but much easier to get out. Okay, you can just pass out very easily. You just have to finish some coursework, do some project work, and of course at the end of 2 years you can just exit the system. But MS by research, there is no time limit for it. Okay, there is a maximum time limit they set. The institute sets as 3, I think it's 4 years or something like that. But if your prof is not satisfied with your work, or if you're not able to produce good research work, you might end up, some cases have gone even till 4.5 years. Okay, so they've spent 4.5 years and then left the institute after that. So keep this in mind. Okay, so if you're not really cut out for research, MS by research is not an easy route. It's easier to get into, so don't get tricked by that, because it's much harder to get out. But if you are in any of these categories, you are really a very passionate and a great problem solver, you are planning to do PhD in the future, you don't have big financial constraints or big health issues, okay, and you don't really like coursework much, you're not really somebody who is obsessed about marks and scores, coursework, you don't really care much about it, and you're interested more about building, you're more interested in building stuff, building new ideas, working on big theoretical problems or big research oriented ideas. MS by research is ideal for you. Okay, and that's why a very small, usually as a teacher, when I was teaching at BITS as well, or rather when I was interacting with students at IITs as well, usually a very small percentage of the class, if you have a class of 100, maybe I would say less than 5%, not even 5%, who will be inclined or who will be capable of finishing an MS by research degree. So be very clear. You need to have, once you decide that you are going to do an MS by research program, you need to be very motivated for the 4 years to finish the degree. If you're not motivated enough, it's very tough to finish the degree, especially in the top schools. If you want to, let's say, apply for IITM in analog mixed signal research groups, the expectation will be very high. You have to be very motivated to finish it. Otherwise, the thing is that no one's going to force you, but time will time will just be passing, and you will not have any research outcomes, and then there won't be any deadline. See, usually when you quickly publish a research outcome, measure, you send a chip for tape out, get the chip results, measure the results. When you do all that, then naturally you're inching towards completion. But let's say you don't have any of that, you haven't sent your chip for tape out, then of course it's going to take longer and longer. Okay, so I'll probably, if you guys have any doubts, you can just send me as comments. I'll probably make another video. Hopefully this is what something I want you guys to keep in mind. Don't blindly enter MS by research because it's easier. Okay, it's much harder to get out. Okay, so this is all I wanted to talk about. And I also received some comments on, you know, which is better, you know, why do I prefer certain institutes and all that. I'll make a different video for that. Okay, thank you.